Hey everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Allyson Sadler, and today we will be discussing recombinant bovine somatotropin in the dairy industry. I don't know about y'all, but ever since I was a freshman in high school, I always heard that by the year 2050, there's going to be 8 or 9 billion people, and the ag industry is what's going to be responsible for sustaining the ever-growing world population, which means new innovations in technology. Recombinant bovine somatotropin, or RBST, is one of those handy innovations that come up within the last 30 to 40 years. RBST was officially approved for use by the FDA in 1993, but still has received its fair share of backlash from the media, consumers, and even some scientific communities. Despite the controversy surrounding RBST, it is an effective supplement that is efficient for the industry, for the economy, and for the environment, and that can be used to feed the ever-growing world. The question of the day, though, is what even is RBST? Well, recombinant bovine somatotropin is the identical twin of bovine somatotropin, except it is made through the recombinant DNA technology in a lab. Bovine somatotropin is a natural protein hormone made up of several amino acids. As a supplement in dairy cows, it is given subcutaneously and not orally. Otherwise, it'd be digested and degraded like any other dietary protein hormone. When we consider a people or a human equivalent, we think of human insulin. So obviously, medical grade human insulin is made in a lab, it's synthetically created, and if in like bovine somatotropin or even human somatotropin, that insulin is a protein hormone. So if we were to give people who need insulin, give it to them orally, it wouldn't have any effect. Therefore, we do insulin injections. But RBST obviously works a little bit different than insulin. RBST functions to stimulate body growth and nutrient mobilization directly and indirectly through the actions of other hormones like insulin growth factor 1 or IGF-1, which we will discuss in a great amount of detail in just a little bit. RBST functions in dairy cattle to synthesize more milk by increasing mammary gland uptake of nutrients in the bloodstream as her feed intake increases. When considering this, there are 3 important components. First, maintenance requirements. These will stay around the same for dairy cows even though they're being given RBST. Second, even though maintenance requirements are staying the same, the overall nutrition requirements increase. So then if she is eating more, but her maintenance requirements are staying the same, and yet her total requirements are increasing, where are all these extra nutrients going? To making more milk. There is an increase in metabolism to allow for more nutrients in circulation, which will get picked up by the mammary system to make more milk. All 3 of these components equal to a more efficient feed to milk conversion, as there is more milk output per feed input. This feed to milk conversion could then allow dairy producers to decrease the total amount of feed per cow, as she would need less feed overall to make more milk, as she doesn't do any extra work to make the extra milk. Her body does it with the help of RBST. With RBST, more milk is produced at a lower cost. On average, RBST allows for 5 kilograms more milk per cow. So fewer dairy cows can be used to produce the same amount or even more milk, which would reduce their carbon footprint while improving economic gain. But is this technology too good to be true? Is it actually worth my time as a dairy producer? Management practices will be the telltale sign of this. Things like herd health, nutrition, milking regimen, and environmental conditions will determine if RBST will be an effective tool. Poor management practices lead to no milk return, while excellent practices lead to the greatest milk return. As a dairy farmer, it's all about wielding the tools in your disposal properly. Well, of course, the largest controversies surrounding RBST deal with human health. While there are many different concerns, we will dive into 3 specific ones and debunk some of them. First is the similarities between bovine somatotropin and human somatotropin. The main concern is that if BST, or bovine somatotropin, is consumed, there will be adverse effects in the human body. However, bovine somatotropin has no biological effect in humans, as it is broken down into amino acids via digestion and degradation in denaturation, which we even discussed previously when we talked about the example of human insulin. Plus, bovine somatotropin is not even biologically active in humans because our somatotropin receptors only recognize the human version of the hormone. This was found through a study conducted in the 1950s. Children with pituitary dwarfism were given treatments of bovine somatotropin to try to stimulate their growth, but the experiment failed, leading to the conclusion that bovine somatotropin is species specific. The second area of human health is IGF-1, or insulin growth factor 1, and its effects tied to RBST. IGF-1 is also a protein hormone that produces metabolic effects. Milk, as an animal product made up of different proteins, but with specific ones like BST or IGF-1, the concern stems from the fact that the human version of IGF-1 is structurally identical to the bovine version. And if consumed from milk of dairy cows treated with RBST, then there could be adverse effects. Similar to the BST's effect on humans, which again is none, there is no effect with IGF-1 since most of the time it would not be absorbed anyways. However, in infants that still have increased amounts of absorption as a means of obtaining that passive immunity, like by obtaining the maternal immunoglobulins, intact IGF-1 could still be absorbed in the intestine. Through different studies conducted using mice, the absorbed IGF-1 was found to improve intestinal function and could actually help infants with compromised digestive tract. The IGF absorption to overall circulation was found to be negligible though. Ultimately, stage of lactation and parity is what determines the amount of IGF-1 in cow's milk and not RBST treatment. As a cow lactates, her IGF-1 levels decrease, and even in their highest amounts, it is still a typical range found in shelf milk. Something interesting that I really want you to consider is our own IGF levels. We consume human IGF-1 through our own saliva, which has a much higher effect on our own bodies than bovine IGF-1 that typically is not found in peripheral circulation anyways, if it's even absorbed. A third area concerning human health is the development of cancer, specifically breast cancer in women. It has been believed that consumption of dairy products poses a risk to developing breast cancer because of the presence of things like saturated fatty acids, IGF-1, and somatotropin. As we just discussed, IGF-1 consumed from dairy products is just a drop in the bucket compared to the levels we produce through our own saliva, pancreatic juices, and the liver. The same concept can be applied to bovine somatotropin. We produce our own levels of human somatotropin that do not compare to the minimal levels of bovine somatotropin found in the milk. RBST treatment does not significantly increase the amount of BST in the milk, and more than 90% of that BST that was in the milk is denatured anyways through pasteurization. As discussed earlier, any bovine somatotropin that finds its way in the human body is not biologically active due to being species specific. Something important that I really want to highlight is the benefit that consuming milk brings by preventing breast cancer. Milk contains things like calcium, vitamin D, butyric acid, and whey protein that all have their own methods of preventing breast cancer. Milk should be put on a pedestal by the scientific community rather than being torn down based on false assertions that it causes breast cancer. RBST is a very effective tool that allows a healthy superfood, milk, to be produced more and reach more consumers worldwide. More controversy surrounding RBST supplementation comes from dairy cattle health. Concerning dairy cattle, we're going to take a look at 4 what-if statements. So, beginning off, the first concern is the overall well-being of the dairy cow. It was speculated that RBST treatment would cause more disease and stress, but it actually improves immune function due to the mobilization of nutrients. Ultimately, though, it all boils down to management practices. Excellent management practices will include a solid herd health plan, like we discussed earlier, that will cut down on diseases that allow RBST to bring in a good milk return. Our second what if statement is, if I use RBST, what if there's a higher occurrence of mastitis? Well, RBST does not increase the risk of clinical mastitis occurring. Risk of mastitis is tied to herd health, parity, the season, and stage of lactation. In fact, RBST treatment was found to protect the cow's mammary glands against bacterial infections, which speaks to the natural function of RBST in the dairy cow's body. Again, occurrence of mastitis is tied heavily to everyday management practices and environmental conditions of individual herds and not the widespread use of RBST supplementation. Our third what if statement is, if I use RBST, what if there are changes in milk composition? Well, milk composition varies by breed, age, parity, the season, and management practices of individual herds. For example, let's look at the difference between a Holstein and a Jersey. So Jerseys are known for their higher butterfat content in their milk compared to Holstein. Much more goes into milk composition than just if you use RBST or not as a supplement for your cattle. According to this table from Dr. Daffiday, milk from RBST supplemented cattle showed no significant difference from milk from cattle that were not supplemented. Fat, protein, lactose, and ash all those levels were very similar in both milks, and both show the same nutritional quality. The fourth what if statement we have is, what if there are changes to their reproductive efficiency? Well, just within the last year in 2019, there was a study conducted that found that RBST improves reproductive efficiency. RBST stimulates the release of IGF-1, which we already knew that. That contributes to growth of structures on target organs like ovarian follicles. The increased follicular size allowed for increased conception rates with artificial insemination. Not only does RBST directly produce more milk in dairy cattle, but indirectly too. They're maximizing reproductive efficiency. The more reproductively efficient she is, the better a chance of her having a calf and then producing the milk. So a third area of controversy tied to RBST is, of course, the environment. Within the last 4 years, it has been such a hot topic of how cattle are tied to global warming, climate change, and greenhouse emissions, and all those super fun hot button topics. So through a series of models, Dr. Judith L. Capper of the Department of Animal Science at Cornell University predicted that supplementing 1 million cows with RBST would be the equivalent to removing 400,000 cars from the road, or planting 300 million trees. Using RBST would decrease the number of cows, decrease nutritional requirements, decrease waste output, and decrease gas emissions. RBST supplementation leads to a reduction in the carbon footprint left by cattle and astronomically benefits the environment. As animal scientists, it is our obligation to advocate to and educate consumers to appreciate these new technologies and support our producers. RBST is an effective and bioidentical hormone supplement that increases dairy productivity while increasing economic gain and reducing environmental impact. It is one of the many technological innovations that are at the disposal of the agriculture industry to meet the needs of an ever-growing population. Thank you all so much for listening. I really hope you all enjoyed my presentation. Are there any questions?